Okay, good. All right. So, hi everybody. It is a great pleasure to host for today's monthly seminar Dr. Eduardo Santamaria-Vázquez from the University of Valladolid, who will be speaking about advancing BCI Spellers for real-world use, recent progress in c-VEP paradigms, and also a few more technical things that he already promised. Before we start, let me go through quickly Dr. Santamaria-Vázquez bio. So, Eduardo is a research scientist in the field of brain-computer interfaces at the Department of Signal Theory and Communications at the University of Valladolid. Also member of the biomedical engineering group at the same university and member of the Center of Biomedical Research in Bioengineering, Biomaterials, and Nanomedicine. His work focuses on advancing EEG-based BCI methods and applications with contributions aimed at improving the accuracy, robustness, usability, and real-world application of BCI systems for communication and control. He also develops BCI systems for cognitive training and stroke neurorehabilitation, and contributes to EEG biomarker research in areas such as cognitive impairment, migraine, neuropsychiatric conditions, sleep, and anesthesia depth monitoring. In addition, Dr. Santamaria-Vázquez leads the development of Medusa, as is the proper Greek pronunciation, I might say, an innovative platform to accelerate experimentation in BCI and cognitive neuroscience, currently used by research groups and companies worldwide. Okay, and with no further delay, Eduardo, please, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Serafim, for your nice introduction. It's really nice to be here to share what we've been doing in BCI at the Biomedical Engineering Group of the University of Valladolid. And today, specifically, I'm going to focus on non-invasive BCIs based on code-modulated visual evoked potentials, or c-VEPs for short, which are a relatively new paradigm for communication and control, and I hope you find it interesting. So this is the outline of the presentation. First, I'll start with a quick intro to BCI Spellers and the classical P300 paradigm. I wasn't sure what was going to be the audience. So I'll start from scratch. Then I'll introduce the c-VEP paradigm, explaining the typical pipeline, the neurophysiological principles, the stimulation sequences, the reference signal processing pipeline, all the for decoding commands, everything, keeping it basic. And after that, I will share what's been happening recently at our group in developing this paradigm and what we've been doing to bring c-VEP closer to real-world applications. So we are trying to overcome different limitations, things like calibration time, intersubject variability, robustness, outside clean lab conditions, user experience, all these kind of things. And finally, as I promised to Serafin already, I'm going to take a few minutes to introduce other BCI research lines in our group, and particularly our BCI software ecosystem, which is Medusa, which is basically our platform for building, running, and deploying these kind of experiments and applications in a more scalable and fast way. So let's start with the introduction. So here we have the typical scheme of a BCI system. First of all, we have the first block, the signal acquisition. We measure brain activity, and here we are going to focus on EEG. And these signals carry some information about the user's intention along a lot of noise, as you might know, eye movements, muscle activity, bad contact, environmental noise. So everything gets mixed in. Then comes the decoding layer. This is where we try to extract the relevant information by applying different signal processing pipelines and stages, with 3 stages mainly: the pre-processing, feature extraction, and feature classification, which maps the EEG into something meaningful for the application. And as we will see later, in a speller, that would be, for example, the command the user wants to select. And then in the final block is the application or the control layer, where the decoded output becomes an actual command. So select a letter, move a cursor, trigger a smart home action, being the typical target application, the assistance of severely disabled people, of course. And importantly, I think this shows that BCI systems are closed loop architectures, the system gives the user feedback, visual, auditory, sometimes haptic, and that feedback changes the user wants to do next. So I think this real-time interaction is really relevant for BCIs. And the reason I like to show this early is that it also highlights where the challenges are for the real-world applications. Of course, not just the decoding accuracy, which is what most of the studies focus on, but also latency, robustness, calibration time, and user experience, and all of that topics matter equally if we want to bring BCI systems into the real world. So. Also, and the most important challenge of all is how do we encode the user's intention in EEG reliably? Because EEG is a non-invasive technique. It gets a lot of noise, as I've explained before, and captures the electrical activity of the brain with electrodes placed over the scalp from outside the brain, so the spatial resolution is really limited. We cannot directly decode high-level information such as fine motor intents or inner speech. And that's why we use control signals, which are detectable patterns in the EEG that encode user intentions. And with a bit of engineering, we can map this EEG to application commands like select, left, right, a specific symbol in a speller, whatever we want. So in BCI, we usually group these control signals in two categories or two big families: self-regulated endogenous control signals, which are those that user generates internally, being the classic example motor imagery. So in this case, you don't need external stimulation, but of course, it tends to be slower and harder to get robust performance across users. If you have experience with motor imagery, you might have experienced that. And then we also have evoked or exogenous control signals, which rely on external stimulus, mainly visual stimulus or auditory stimulus, and the user control the system mainly by attention. So the classic example here is the P300 speller, which I will explain in the next slides, introduce briefly, so afterwards we can understand better the c-VEP paradigm. So in my opinion, this choice of control signal is the key to design a BCI, and you can have the greatest deep neural network for EEG decoding in the world, but if the control signal is weak, is variable, is not comfortable for the user, you're fighting against the odds, and the system is not going to be reliable enough for real world applications. So as we've seen in recent years, in our lab, there is still a lot of room to improve BCI paradigms and control signals. We discover every day new ways, and not just us, it's the whole BCI environment. We are discovering new ways to encode information in the EEG reliably, and c-VEPs are a great example of that. But before we get there, I'm going to briefly revisit the classic P300 speller, so afterwards we can understand the c-VEP paradigm better. So P300 evoked potentials, as you might know, are positive ERP components that typically appear around 300 milliseconds after an infrequent task-relevant stimulus, reaching a maximum amplitude over centroparietal electrodes for precisions. To elicit it, we usually use the visual audible paradigm, which is represented here. So the user is presented with frequent non-target stimuli, so the black ones here, and occasionally there's an infrequent target stimuli. The user has to focus his or her attention on the target, and the cognitive activity that arises from the distinction between relevant and non-relevant stimuli is what produces the P300. The main limitation of these control signals is that the amplitude is relatively small at the single trial level, so we only get decent signal-to-noise ratio when you repeat the stimuli and average multiple epochs or EEG epochs corresponding to different flashes, as I'm showing in this GIF. I'm not sure if it's running. I don't know why the GIF.
So at this moment we see the slide,
Okay.
not the video.
Well, I hope it's not a general thing for the rest of the presentation. So in this slide here, what we had, it was a sliding window moving average that average a different number of ERPs, and we get this characteristic curve after 200, 300 repetitions. So we only get this increased signal-to-noise ratio signal with this kind of repetition. So how do we use this control signal to build the classical row column paradigm, which is the one I'm showing here? So, well, the setup is simple. You have a grid of symbols, typically letters and numbers. The user's task is to focus the attention on the character they want to select on the system, then highlights the rows and the columns of the matrix in random order. So when the user perceives the highlight in the target letter, the one that he's looking at, for example, A, it elicits a P300, and since we are illuminating rows and columns in random in order and different timestamps, we can afterwards, and with a signal processing pipeline based on machine learning, we can figure out which row and column produce the strongest P300 and select the corresponding command. The classic application of these systems, of course, again, is communication and environmental control for people with severe motor impairments, especially when speech and voluntary movement are limited or absent. And in practice, that means that spellers can be used for text communication, of course, but also for navigating a computer interface, a computer or navigation system, selecting icons, controlling a wheelchair or a cursor, triggering smart home actions, at least all of this in theory. But we have some real-world experience with this kind of systems. Here I'm presenting a video which I can't reproduce right now. I don't know what's happening. Let me see. Okay. I had to press. So here we developed a project around 2018 where we use a P300 speller as an interface to basic computer functions, even social networks. So users could type messages, write tweets, navigate the internet. But those studies that we did back then also made the limitations very clear. So first of all, the P300 signal-to-noise ratio is really low. So to detect it reliably, especially in this kind of population, we need multiple repetitions, and the selection time is really, really slow. So we take around 20, 15 seconds for each selection. With this population, with healthy subjects are easier population, but in these users, they usually have fatigue, attention fluctuations, involuntary movements, eye control issues, tremor, these kind of things. So the P300 is not reliable enough. And second, it has this system a really long calibration. So if you want to have enough accuracy with this kind of population, you need at least 20 to 30 minutes of calibration to acquire label data that can be used afterwards to train the models. So that was the motivation to start to look at other paradigms with stronger and more repeatable responses, like the ones based on code-modulated visual evoked potentials. And right now I'm going to explain the basics of this kind of paradigm. So c-VEPs are the brain's response to a rapid pseudo-random stimulation sequence with highest amplitude over the primary visual cortex. So there is no high-level processing involved in this type of paradigm. We are measuring things over the primary visual cortex. And a simple way to think about this is, instead of presenting a single flash and getting a single VIP, like in the P300, we show a fast stream of flashes, normally 60 or 120 flashes, following a specific code. So the EEG response you record is then like an overlap of many small VIPs, all time logged to those individual bits in the sequence. So we are measuring the pattern specific to the whole code instead of measuring the specific response to single stimuli. And with this paradigm, we get much stronger responses, as we will see later, and we can encode different commands as well to create a speller. So using this principle, we can assign different codes to different targets, okay? And if the system is able to match the EEG response to the specific code of the target, then the user selects a target by looking at it without any further cognitive task. And the system identifies the target, finding which code best explains the recorded EEG. So compared to P300, the c-VEP response tend to be much higher amplitude, much higher signal-to-noise ratio, and improves the speed and accuracy, as we will see later. Well, next I'm going to dive deeper in the design of the system and its in its most basic form, so we can understand how it's trained and afterwards tested, and we can afterwards go to the recent advances on this paradigm. So first of all, we have to design the stimulation paradigm, and the classic approach is the circular shifting paradigm. Instead of designing a totally different stimulation pattern for every target, what we use is a single pseudo-random binary sequence with nice autocorrelation properties. Typically, we use an M sequence. And that's because they have this type of codes, or M sequences have almost flat autocorrelation. We can see it here. So the correlation between the sequence with a shifted version of itself is close to 0 for all shifts, except for of course shift equal to 0. And then we assign the commands like this. Each target, you can see it here, is assigned with a different shift of the same stimulus code. So target 1 is shift 0, target 2 is shift, I don't know, 16 milliseconds, whatever we want. And what we've seen is that this paradigm provides a scalable way to add different commands. We can have at least 32 commands with very short sequences, but of course we are limited also by the length of the sequence. So we have a limited number of shifts available to display at the same time in the screen. Well, in a perfectly linear system, you could just correlate the EEG response to these different codes with the shifted versions of the EM sequence, and guess what command is the user wants to select. But the brain is not linear; it's not a time invariant system. So the autocorrelation functions has to be is not perfect in the EEG, as we've seen in the code. This means that we also need calibration, as in the P300 speller, but it's much shorter. So even if it's nonlinear response, the response still retains enough code-specific structure, so we can identify which shift the user was attending to, and in other words, the correlation isn't theoretically perfect, okay, but it's good enough to separate commands on different shifts reliably. Additionally, as in the P300 speller, we can trade speed for accuracy by repeating the code, so we can increase the signal-to-noise ratio. And its repetition here is a cycle, so I'm going to refer to this concept several times along the presentation. Regarding the reference signal processing or the classic signal processing pipeline, the first phase, of course, is the calibration. In this phase, the system records the EEG while the user attends to a known target. Okay, so we only show in this phase one target, which is corresponding to the original code of the EM sequence, shift equals to 0. And we record the brain signals corresponding to the response of this shift. Afterwards, we apply a signal processing pipeline. A simple way of viewing it is to average all the responses to different cycles and get an EEG, what we call an EEG template, okay? And then we get the EEG response for each one of the commands by shifting the EEG template. In practicality, this is a little bit more complicated because we use optimal spatial projections with canonical correlation analysis, but I think it's pretty straightforward. It's computationally efficient. It's fast, and the key here is that with this kind of with the circular paradigm, we only have to train one sequence. So with uh, less than 5 minutes for some users, even with 1 minute of calibration, we can reach accuracies above 90-95%. Afterwards, once the calibration is done, we move to the test phase, which is the online evaluation stage. No? So here we record the new EEG segments while the user attends to one of the targets. We extract using the same pipeline the EEG template for this for one specific trial, and then we calculate the correlation with the different versions of the shifted calibrated template that we extracted before. So the command with the highest correlation here is going to be selected by the system. So pretty straightforward. Again, this is a little simplification because we are using canonical correlation analysis, but it's easy to understand. And typically, we can expect with 3 seconds trials, 2 seconds trials, we can expect accuracies above 95% in healthy subjects. That's what we've seen it. The counterpart is that we have a more limited number of commands, and the number of commands is limited by the time resolution, of course, of the system, and also by the length of the sequence. So here we have a video of how this basic system. Okay, so I'm going to see if I can play it. So as you can see, the selection is pretty fast. Okay, we have improved a lot with respect to P300 Speller, but still we can improve more, as I'm going to explain now. So if you want to dive deeper in the details of this basic system, the reference system, we published the first literature review on c-VEPs in 2021, and it covers the circular shifting paradigm, how do you design all these sequences, and covers all the standard processing pipeline that is used in most systems. So now with the latest advances that we've been developing for this paradigm, we are trying to get it to bring it closer to real world applications. So in the signal processing part, the circular shifting approach with template matching is a good reference pipeline. It's simple, it works well compared to P300, but it also has several limitations, as I've just explained. Sorry. So first, the EEG templates are user-specific. So this is very important. You cannot apply cross-subject transfer learning here. You have to record the specific response to the code of each user and probably repeat it for each session if you want to achieve high accuracy. So in practice, you still need a calibration phase, even if it's 5 minutes. It is still a limitation for plug and play use. And second, the number of commands you can reliably encode with circular shifts is not unlimited. We have a limit that is constrained by the length of the sequence, but also by the temporal resolution of the EEG and the refresh rate of the display. So shifts, if they become too close in time, even if they are theoretically correct, the responses overlap, and the way that makes the classes and this way the signal processing stage has difficulties to separate different commands. So we change the perspective here from template matching to bitwise reconstruction approaches. So the way this works is with a sliding window, time locked to the specific stimuli events, and we use a model to reconstruct epoch by epoch, window by window, segment by segment, the original original bits of the sequence. This way, we can use machine learning and deep learning for the model, and this way, the decoding becomes more code independent. So we are not relying on whole sequences for the decoding. So we are relying on specific stimuli here. And if we are able to train a machine learning or a deep learning algorithm that is cross-subject, we can have a zero calibration. We can have a zero calibration system. And this way, we are also not restricted to M sequences, and we can have an unlimited number of commands with random sequences. So the thing after reconstructing all the original sequence, we calculate the correlation again for all the different templates that we have for the different commands, and we select again the command that gives us the highest correlation. We tested this approach with deep learning, specifically with EEG Inception architecture as the bitwise classifier, and as you can see here, it outperforms the reference pipeline, especially for less number of cycles. So it's more accurate when we have very short trials, very high speed communication. Also, very importantly, we tested that in a cross-subject way. So we have a zero calibration system which reaches for 10 cycles, which is a pretty long time selection time, which is, if we are using 120 hertz refresh rate on the screen, that would be like 5 seconds of stimulation. But we can reach with a zero calibration system 95% accuracy. And I think this is the way that we are going to do it in the next stages of our system. Also, we've been trying to work on the stimulus design because the classic c-VEP stimuli with high contrast and rapid flicker can produce eye strain and visual fatigue, especially over long sessions. So we have explored alternative stimulation designs aimed at improving user experience, especially more comfortable visual patterns with less peripheral distraction, for example, non-binary modulation, checkerboard patterns, grating-based stimuli. So here we can see a video of the different stimuli that we are using right now. I'm not sure if you can see it, especially the grating one. Do you see it?
The checkerboard is clear, and the grating, yes, right, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Because I wasn't sure because of the network if you could see it. So we are moving towards a much more comfortable type of stimuli with less eye strain, with less contrast, and trying, of course, to maintain the accuracy of the system. And we are trying also different sequences or stimulation patterns based on burst codes, which condense the stimulation in brief segments rather than being continuously intense. So instead of flickering all the time, they burst a little bit, stay off. We can see it again. So here, with this kind of stimulation, we get much lower eye strain and less visual fatigue, especially, which is really important for real world applications. Here we have a video of the speller with non-binary codes. So each code here is encoded with different shades of gray. So we don't have plain white and black stimuli. We have different levels of gray, which improves visual fatigue a lot. We can see that still we have very good performance, pretty low selection time. So the objective here was to select all the board A, B, C, D. And I want to show you the latest development, which is the grating stimuli based on Gabor patterns. I don't know if you can see it, okay, it's almost imperceptible to the eye. So only the person that looks directly to the target letter is actually seeing the stimuli. You get no distractions from the commands around also, and we can maintain visual performance. And this is based. This is this idea of this kind of stimuli exploits the way that the retina and early visual cortex process spatial frequency and orientation. So here it might appear a little bit pixeled, but it's not. The Gabor filters are like this. So our retina and our visual cortex is much more sensible to this kind of changes in direction and contrast, and with less stimulation, with less contrast, we can achieve the same or less performance. So this is what we've been doing in this part. We are also designing more practical systems, especially early stopping. So the goal of early stopping approaches is to optimize selection speed and accuracy by adjusting stimulation time dynamically. So the classical approach requires a predefined stimulation time. It's always the same, even if the system is not confident about the selection. Okay, so with early stopping, we use an accumulative decision process, allowing the system to trigger a command as soon as a confidence threshold is reached. And if you don't reach this confidence threshold, the stimulation doesn't stop until it's certain, until the selection is certain. So this increases the decoding speed and the accuracy. Here we have another demo. So the implementation here uses these blue squares around the different commands. Okay, so you can see the probability that the system is detecting for each command, and in the end, when the threshold is reached, we select the command, and you can see that the speed is also really high, but also the accuracy. If the system is not confident enough, it's not going to select anything. And this robustness, I think, is very important. We think is really important for real world applications also. Also, asynchronous control is another thing that it's really important for a BCI system. So most of the approaches that we have today are synchronous systems. So they assume that the user always wants to make a selection, and detecting this attention focus between different tasks is a whole different story apart from decoding the command. So this approach is not adequate for practical applications, and self-paced speller allow users to shift attention to perform other tasks and resume control when desired. So this is key for real-world applications, and we have been developing also pipelines for detecting these attention shifts with c-VEP spellers. So here we have another demo where Victor is going to select a sequence of commands. I think he's trying to select BCI win. If I remember correctly, I'm going to speed up a little bit. And now he's going to see the attention. He's going to start reading another time, and the system will not select any command whatsoever. So I think this is another thing that is usually overlooked in most of the studies, but it's really, really key for real world applications, because if we want to have an assistive systems, for example, to select commands in a home automation environment for severely disabled people, you have to get this right and with high accuracy. We are also working on new applications of this paradigm. So we are trying to to find new uses, especially in gaming. So we have designed competitive and collaborative BCIs to study the interaction between users, how increases motivation and user engagement. And here we have another video with Victor and me playing Connect 4. Okay, so this is a very simple example, but a powerful application, especially for entertainment purposes. So I think we also have to move in this direction because I think we can do great things in these gaming applications. Also, the integration with virtual and mixed reality, I think it's a really interesting use case. So here we have several challenges that we have to overcome. The first one is comfort, because high contrast flicker close to the eyes, especially with virtual reality applications, can cause even stronger visual fatigue in over long-term use. We have hardware constraints because the refresh rate mismatches introduce stimulus jitter. We have which directly reduces the coding accuracy. So we can expect different technical or engineering problems here with virtual reality, and also something inherent to virtual reality and especially to mixed reality. Highly visible flashing targets can be intrusive, right? So they break the immersion and even block the virtual scene. So we don't want to do that in a real world application. So we've been investigating different types of settings of opacity for the different commands and the stimuli, so we can better integrate this paradigm in virtual reality and mixed reality applications, and the results were also pretty promising here. Here we have another video where we developed a c-VEP application for virtual reality. We have the same speller that before, and we studied all these kind of technical problems that we have with this type of devices. So I think this is a really interesting application. Especially, we want in the next stage of the project, we want to build an assistive application, a mixed reality application for device control in smart homes, and we're going to implement it and test it with target population, and we are going to implement all these new advances in c-VEPs. So this is the concept. It's not developed yet. I don't have demos of that, but the system is a mixed reality system. It will detect the different kind of devices that we have at home and we can control. And when we are placed in front of the device that we want to control, it will show this kind of keyboard or speller where there are going to be the commands of the application. So this is work in progress. We don't have that now, but we are really close with all the advancement that I presented just now. So that was all for the c-VEP paradigms and the recent work that we've been doing in the group. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about Medusa, which is our BCI platform that we've been developing since 2018 to develop all these kind of experiments. So the Medusa ecosystem is open source. You were asking before, Seraphim. So it's totally open source. It has a broad hardware compatibility, as I'm going to show right now. It's modular, it's scalable, and it has a flexible design. It's Python-based for signal processing. This is very important. And for the graphical interfaces, we can use Python if the application does not require a very precise synchronization between stimuli and EEG or other kind of signals, or we can rely on Unity. We also have a module based on Unity for the integration of graphical interfaces developed in this platform, which is much more reliable to have better synchronization in the stimuli, and of course the possibilities of this platform are much higher than Python for graphical interfaces. We have a comprehensive suite already of BCI experiments. So all the things that I've presented so far are free and available in our website. You can reproduce all the experiments that I have been presented and test new things on your own. And there is a specific tools to develop and share new applications through the app market. So I think Medusa has a spirit of to be community driven. So we want to increase or to improve this part because so far we've been the only ones that we've been submitting new experiments, but I expect that to change in the future. So the Medusa ecosystem has three key components. So Medusa kernel, which is a Python package for EEG decoding, the platform, which is the graphical user interface that runs the experiments. All the things that I've been presenting are run in Medusa platform, and the EEG is decoded and processed with Medusa kernel. Another relevant component is the website that contains all the documentation, the app market with the experiments that I just presented and more. And you can download experiments and install it directly in your platform. So this is the timeline. This is ongoing work. Of course, we keep developing Medusa. It's been around from 2022, and every year we introduce new improvements because actually it's our main tool for research. So everything that we do in the group brings a new improvement in Medusa. There is, of course, a publication if you want to know more about this ecosystem. You can check the original paper. You will find all the information. And regarding the website, we have tutorials. So a tutorial on P300 analysis, tutorial on c-VEP analysis, everything scripts to extract information and the commands that as I have been presenting before. So you can go there and check all the information. And we also have different types of experiments. I'm going to just give a very quick overview of the different experiments that we have. So we have neurofeedback applications for cognitive training, for different scenarios. Okay, so we have different games here that you can use for your neurofeedback projects, or you can develop new ones, of course. We have all the paradigms based on motor imagery, so you can test and record new signals based on this BCI paradigm. With this here, you have the link to the specific application that I'm talking about and the icon, okay, on the website, so you can download the specific experiment. Building on this kind of basic paradigms as the motor imagery that I have been presenting, you can build your own more serious projects. Okay, so for instance, right now we are focused also on stroke rehabilitation. We develop an application in Medusa based on motor imagery to rehabilitate stroke patients with this robot hand here. So the robotic hand gives haptic feedback to the user based on the brain activity when the application detects a motor intent or motor imagery. So with Medusa, we have the basic stuff. You can build on that to work on your own projects and to develop new things. This application is private. It's not available in the market, and that's also something interesting. You can upload or you can create your own applications and decide whether if they are going to be public or you want to give a specific access to specific users. So if it's a research project, for example, probably you are not interested in sharing the application, at least at first. So you can do that already. You can do that already on the platform and using the tools that we provide. Also, Medusa is very, very powerful for not only for active BCIs with the interaction with the system, but also for passive BCIs and recording experiments in general, because it has a built-in module for very precise synchronization between data streams. So here, our latest experiment, we were doing an experiment on cognitive load monitorization during a gaming application. okay? And we were recording EEG, 64 channels, near-infrared spectroscopy, ECG, and eye tracking all at the same time and synchronized with the stimuli that have been happening in the platform. So here we have a video also of that application. This is not active BCI because it's a monitorization application, but I think it's also relevant or could be also relevant for you. So here is a very simple game that we developed in Unity, but what we are trying to study is the changes in brain activity through different cognitive load and levels of the game. So that's all from me. I want to thank, of course, all the team. I didn't present only my work, so it's been the work of a lot of people. And well, we are also open to new collaborations, which I think this is one of the goals today. We are open to receive international students. So if you have any of this interest, if you have any question, please go ahead. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Eduardo. A very interesting talk and amazing work you have been doing. And yes, definitely, I think there is a lot of overlapping and a lot of common interest in collaborations between our two labs. All right. So I think we can move to the questions. Please use the React button at the Zoom menu at the bottom and the raise hand so that, I can coordinate this. In the meantime, I guess while people are preparing their questions, I can start with a more technical
Go
one
ahead.
on Medusa, as you can
Mm-hmm.
imagine. So, one thing that maybe previous platforms I was personally not happy with was that they couldn't somehow balance the trade-off that you have between having everything running smoothly, from the computational point of view, no delays and so on, and having the platform being easy to use for PhD students that need to develop their own, their own experiments. So they need their own feedback. They need to try novel signal processing or machine learning and so on. So usually, if it is made in C, C++, it's very efficient, but very hard to code on. If it is made with MATLAB or Python, it's the other way. So how does Medusa play in this? If I understood correctly, you have a Python
Yes, the
platform. Yeah.
main core of the signal processing pipelines are developed in Python. I agree with you that, of course, C++ is going to be always faster, but I think for research purposes or student projects or these kind of things, it's not feasible because the time that it requires to code everything, we are talking about user interfaces, signal processing. Just one of the parts of one BCI system is hard enough to code on C++. So if you have to code everything, it's not feasible actually. So the core of everything is Python based, especially the signal processing also. And I think that we have optimized the architecture as best as we could to minimize latency, to minimize this kind of problems that Python have, because of course it's not as fast as C++, but we try to minimize it with with intelligence, I would say. So in the end, what we've been trying to do is to, and we demonstrated, you have seen the videos, we can work on real time with different paradigms. Perhaps spellers are not really hard in this kind of sense, because you get the feedback after the trial ends. So you have delays are not as important, but for example, in real-time feedback for motor imagery, neurorehabilitation, that's a key point. If you want to stimulate endogenously and the brain to relearn this kind of motor patterns, you have to have minimal latency. And I think we have experiments running with latencies below 100 milliseconds. So everything is real time.
But your acquisition is based on LSL. Is this correct?
The acquisition is based on LSL. Yes,
And in my
we build on top.
experience,
We build on top of
LSL
that.
tends to have delays. Do you do anything special to handle this?
Uh, yeah, of course. These delays are always expected. Okay. What you can do different things. LSL has several tools that you can optimize for that. We always try to run everything on the same computer because we can record the signals and in one computer and run the experiment in another. But this gives us some problems with the synchronization. And on top of LSL, we have built a new module that processes all the timestamps and applies specific algorithms to correct this type of latency. So we do what we can. Of course, it's not perfect. Probably there are some applications that you require faster processing, but I think that if you optimize your signal processing pipeline and the architecture as in Medusa, you can have pretty fast systems for real-time decoding. Yes.
I see. And just to close this, I can write my own Python module for my machine learning. It's not, you don't restrict to drag and drop or to particular modules of
No.
classification, or I can
No,
do
no, no.
my own code.
You
Okay.
can design your own pipeline.
Okay.
The code is open. So you can download an application, see, and the design is really modular. So you will see where is the line that decodes all the EEG that is coming that we are receiving in the application, and you can change that with your own pipeline. So
Okay.
I would say that trying new things, it's very, very easy. We
Thank
have
you. I
templates for
think
new
we will give it a
applications.
try.
Okay, perfect.
Are there any questions from the audience? Yeah, Junhua, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for your presentation. So my question is about the code, because you use random code for the different letters. I'm wondering is that if we design the code like better for each letter, for example, we make the codes like orthogonal. So in this case, is it possible to make them more easier for recognition or classification? Because as you know that we have a correlation between the EEG and the codes we used to stimulate our brain activity. So if our stimulus is more orthogonal, maybe the induced activity is more different. So have you already think about that?
It's thank you for the question. Yeah, it's something that we thought at the beginning, but if you realize, even if you have the same code, if you shift it temporarily, okay, and present it from a different part of the code, you get a whole new code. So the thing with M sequence is that the code is so different that the correlation between the code and the shifted version is going to be zero. So it cannot be more different in that sense. So if you get random codes, for example, for all the commands, the correlation between these random codes it's going to be higher than what you get with the shift of a M sequence, because I haven't talked about it. We didn't have the time, but to design these codes, you have to apply somehow advanced algorithms. So it's not something that you can design. So there is a whole theory in M sequence generation. These kind of sequences are used to encode information in telecommunication systems. So this c-VEP paradigm comes from that. And what we do is to separate and to have as codes as different as it can be. So
Yeah.
random codes actually are much more closer in correlation than M sequences shifts.
Okay. And another question actually is not a question, just a discussion about because for the purpose of the practical usage, you use like improve the confidence of your command output to identify if the user is using your system or just to perform other tasks. So it means you set a very high confidence or threshold to say, okay, currently user is using your system or not. Uh, Actually, I wonder is it like, for example, we just install a camera on our screen, we just capture the user's behavior, say, okay, when the user is staring on the screen, we just capture the signal and do the following BCI, like recognition or command output. When they shift their attention and away from the screen, we just stop. So in this case, we can reduce our like energy for the computation or like calculations of things. Oh, of course, the confidence improvements is a way to solve this like practical usage. I not say that is not good, but there's different ways when we integrate into our system. Maybe it's easier for the users. For example, some users is like BCI blind, so they cannot reach very high confidence of the command. Yeah.
So you mean to integrate, for example, eye tracking, no?
Yeah, like eye tracking or just a camera. So we put a camera on the screen. They are not staring at or they are not like watching on the screen. So we can get this information from the camera. Yeah.
But you mean to substitute the BCI part or to complement it? Because you can do both. Of course, with eye tracking algorithms, you can track where the user is wants or is looking at. But also, command selection is a different thing because
Yeah, I'm not
the
talking
problem with
about
that is
the
that you shift.
command
Yeah.
selection because as one of your demos, you show that the system needed to first judge if the user is using your system or they are just reading a book. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I know
because
what.
you are based on the confidence of their recognition results. So
Mhm.
alternative way is like that we can use a camera to judge if they are using your system. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting. Actually, thanks for the suggestion. I haven't tried that. I'm sure that, for example, if you look to other way, that's going to work for sure, and it's going to be easier. So perhaps it's something that we have to consider to integrate. But for example, I present you this use case. For example, in VR, in virtual reality, you could be focusing your attention on the command stimulation, okay, or you could be looking at something just just aside of the command on the stimulation and focusing your attention on perhaps the background. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
perhaps
yeah.
in that case it would be more difficult, and
Yeah,
it's
because in
easier to
some
do that.
cases, actually, they just studying, but is not engaged in your task. Yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I think they are complementary system. Also, with eye tracking, eye tracking has its own limitations, but we could complement everything. So, for example, if we can detect reliably with eye tracking where are you looking or what sector are you looking in the screen, we can discard all the other commands and increase the confidence of the system. So I always see that as a complementary systems that rather than one way solution. So thanks for the
Yeah,
suggestion,
definitely.
and we'll
There's
try
many
to
ways
implement that.
to solve the same problem. Yeah. So thank you so much. Yeah, your interesting work.
Thank you, Yonghua.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question. If not from the audience, I was wondering, Eduardo, are there studies comparing the coded VPs with the more standard paradigms, both in terms of performance, which is of course of interest, and also in terms of the illiteracy phenomenon? Are there users that cannot use a coded VP, and is there an estimate of what percentage that would be?
Of course, well, there are studies, and we have done some of them comparing different paradigms. Well, the performance with P300 is just not comparable, in my opinion. With SSBP, actually, that comparison makes sense. The difference between SSBP encodes command, for those who don't know, encodes command with frequencies instead of codes, but the paradigm is more or less the same. But in that case, I think you are more limited with the number of commands. So the number of available reliable frequencies that a normal screen can present at the same time is not that high actually. So you have to rely on more complex things like phase, different approaches to increase the number of commands in SSBPs. And I think c-VEPs are easier in that way, but somehow the performance, I think it's comparable in terms of selection time. But I think c-VEPs are more robust in other kind of conditions.
All right.
That
Yeah.
would be my answer.
SSVP also has the advantage. I mean, your calibration time is really minimal, as you said, but SSVP can go down to 0 because you have the template is the natural sinusoids.
Well,
But yeah,
I saw the
I see
study
your
with
point.
zero calibration in c-VEPs. If you use
Yeah.
the bitwise reconstruction approach, we are now using zero calibration and
Or you can do
pre-trained
it with
models
transfer learning.
with
Yeah.
transfer learning, and
Yeah.
that would be a practical zero calibration. Of course, there's calibration,
Yeah.
but not from the test user. And regarding the illiteracy, the BCI illiteracy, well, with exogenous systems and especially with SSBPs and c-VEPs, I think this phenomenon is less common. So I haven't encountered anybody that cannot reliably select commands. Of course, there is difference in accuracy between subjects. So some subject is going to select everything right in just 1 second of stimulation, and perhaps another user needs 8 seconds. So there are huge differences between users, but illiteracy that you cannot control the system, I haven't seen it. So perhaps some people, but since we are relying on very primary responses on the virtual cortex, I think this phenomenon in this type of system is less common.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we can close the seminar here. Again, thank you very much for this really interesting work presentation, and I'm sure we're going to be in touch for possible collaborations. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Sebastian.
Bye.
Nice to see you.